Okay.
Okay.
Okay, just a minute. Oh, you're already a panelist. Perfect. Make a,
I need this lamp.
okay. Hey, listen,
Yeah.
you can also say, okay, you look fine. You look fine. And besides, you know what? This isn't okay. Actually, you look good. Just a little bit dark, but you know what? It is what it is.
Wait a minute. I can change the lights now. Looks like I'm being. The hell's that?
That's better. It's still a little dark, but it's good enough. It's
Okay.
good enough. Okay, so I'm gonna start. We're gonna roll this. So you just sit quietly until I introduce you.
Okay.
I can't. Okay. I'm gonna try again.
Okay. And that's the trash trucks going by. I miss getting my trash out.
Yeah. Welcome to the resistance. Wait. Oh, okay. 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 Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Oh, just peachy keen.
Okay, so we actually have an opportunity, which I'd rather not have. I'd rather not be in this situation, but you just woke up this morning and you were confronted with a very scary, shocking revelation in the press. And you just now, correct me if I'm wrong, did you just now finish your latest blog post that is not even out there yet?
I just finished the blog post. It is posted, and I am just finishing the last of the tweets, and they are on as well.
So tell us about the unfortunate, shocking story that you came across yesterday, and then read us, if you don't mind, give us the first presentation of your blog post today.
The revelation yesterday was that a member of the Russian legislature, the Dumas, bragged that Russian intelligence had stolen the American president. In other words, that their election hacking enabled Russia to take our top office.
Wow. So go ahead. Yep. And
that can be viewed as being bad. It can also be viewed as good if you're looking at a diagnosis of a disease. You want to know it's there. But the more that we have evidence in the press, and the more Russia brags about it and our politicians admit it, the more one wonders, why aren't people more alarmed about it and demanding that we investigate and void the election if this indeed occurred?
You know, that's really interesting. And I would like to say that on that note, if there's any need for proof that we are nonpartisan, I personally am just shocked that Hillary Clinton is out talking about what went wrong with her campaign and talking about Bernie and other stuff, when right in front of her is the fact that the election was not even legitimate. So there's paralysis on both sides of the aisle.
Well, there is, because so many people are vested in the system as it's developed there's so much money that's demanded of a candidate just to run for a U.S. Congress seat anymore that everything becomes sacrificed to what they can do to solicit contributions from donors. But then on the other hand, if we look at the way in which things have become entertainment, it's like, and the way that I say it in the blog this morning, American audiences always, it seems, have trusted magicians. Magic tricks only work by sleight of hand and suspension of the audience disbelief. The audience focuses on the right hand while the real trick is performed by the left hand. And it would seem that with Donald Trump facing different crises that occur, it allows him to have the American public focus on that, and they don't focus on the real crisis, and that is his occupying the presidency by virtue of collusion with Russia.
Okay, so I would like to say also, I don't know what the sound problem is. I'm going to have to. So just an admission, I am not a technical guru, and there's a steep learning curve for me with YouTube Live. So I'm going to have to just turn off on my other computer the YouTube Live to see the questions that are coming in. I just want to apologize to whoever's listening right now. By tomorrow, I will figure out how I can monitor, or I'll get another person to actually field the questions to you.
Sure.
Today, they're going to be live uncut. I'll try to come up with questions. I'm just apologizing to the audience. If you have questions, please send them to revotenow2017@gmail, and we will have Mark respond to those as soon as possible. One more thing, you can also talk to Mark on Twitter. Mark was not a Twitter guy until now, but he's doing quite a great job. Don't look at his number of followers. He's kind of a Luddite, but the Twitter handle,
Neo-Luddite.
there you go. Mark Small 1973 is your Twitter handle. So without further ado, tell us what you wrote just now for your blog post.
What I wrote was that Donald Trump announced at the beginning of his candidacy that he was so rich that no one could buy him. Then he refused to disclose his income tax returns and the schedules attached to them. And so one wonders, why is it that he would not disclose his income tax returns? Well, first, because he's not as rich as he said. But second, those schedules that are attached would show ties that he has to Russia that have gone back decades. And as I say in the blog this morning, Trump money ties to Russia are decades old, and Trump properties have been used so often that the Russian mob might as well have it as their own laundromat. And so we have crises occur, and I'm not diminishing the crises that have occurred in terms of Texas and Florida. One of our petitioners in Bailey and Others versus the United States and others had to leave her home because of Hurricane Irma. But what I am saying is some problems can be worsened by having someone incompetent in office, or they can be worsened intentionally because Putin loves chaos. Also, crises can be created. So we have a situation where an individual occupies that office, and the only people that really voted for him and didn't have their right to vote taken away were people who intentionally voted for someone because they thought he was a puppet of a Russian oligarch. And I don't think that number of people anywhere approaches the millions, or for that matter, the thousands, maybe a couple of hundred Trumpies who are family members and who benefit from what has been happening for this campaign and going back in his business ties.
Okay, so to not overstate that point, I will make one other caveat. There's also a group of Trump voters who are the so-called, I'll say it, deplorables, white supremacists, people who are, angry and feel left out. And I think a lot of the country has been spending so much time trying to figure out how to appease that small angry group that we're literally just throwing away the vast majority of Americans in this country. So take us from that to your case, which I'm getting to here in a second. Your case is U.S. Supreme Court case 16-1464, which we don't have on the copy here. But tell us about, connect the dots. So Russia itself has admitted that it stolen the election. So why can't the Supreme Court just move on that right now and do something? What's keeping our government from saving us from this invasion?
Well, that would be within the discretion of the court. First of all, we're set for conference on September 25th. That's like a second hurdle to clear.
What is
That's like about 70% or maybe fewer of the cases make that second cut to conference. That's no guarantee that the court is going to listen to the case. But we really want the court to order a briefing schedule, to order the government to respond to our petition. But we ask for two things. One is we've requested that the court appoint a special master. That's someone who can conduct a full investigation independent of the executive branch or the legislative branch. And special counsel right now is subject to being fired indirectly by the president. The president would have to fire the deputy attorney general, who then would fire the special counsel. But that's part of the executive branch. So we're asking for an independent investigation. And if the independent investigation concludes that Russian interference in our elections, that is conceded by Paul Ryan, by Donald Trump, by Mike Pence to an extent, that if that interference actually resulted in any kind of an effect on the election outcome, we should be like Kenya. Kenya's Supreme Court declared void the presidential elections that took place at the beginning of August and declared them void on August 30th. Kenya is a country of like 48 million people, and there are very deep divisions within the society there. But their system was advanced enough to recognize something egregious had occurred, and so they set about to correct that.
So, envelope here. Russian Duma has already admitted they stole the election. So why do we need an independent investigation? I mean, how long is this thing going to take? I mean, doesn't an investigation go on for weeks and weeks? And we've been doing that. I mean, Robert Mueller has been investigating this darn thing. So
okay. There are two aspects to that. One is where are we in this, and will it take? I mean, why do we have to do anything when Russia has already admitted it and all these other people have admitted it? Well, somebody could say that the person in Russia lied. The person wasn't under oath. They could say that the politicians here are politicians like they are anywhere. And that's the cynicism that runs so deep now. But their statements, especially Trump's, Pence's, and Ryan's, since they're parties to this case, are admissions by parties against interest, and so they have evidentiary value. Having the person in Russia say that would tend to go towards the second thing to be proven, and that is the effect on the elections. So that, and now as far as the time period that it would take, if we go with the special counsel and special counsel at the 12th hour is fired, then if they're going to try and scramble and do something in the legislative branch or the executive branch, it would take a while to make up lost time and acquire evidence. In the instance of a special counsel could order that information be delivered to her or his office and proceed forthwith. I don't know how much evidence they would need to say, yeah, they affected the election, so we're going to recommend to the Supreme Court that it be voided. But it would seem to me that Kenya, very quickly, the Chief Justice there said, not that there was any evidence that it had affected the outcome, but that the election had been compromised by so many inconsistencies in what was required of elections in Kenya, that they didn't have to show that there was an effect on the outcome of the race. They felt they had to void the election then. And so that's something within the discretion of the Supreme Court here.
Okay. So on that note, I'm going to get really up close and personal and put you on the spot. I'm going to mention two well-known people, and I'm going to ask you to address them personally. And I haven't told you this, and I'm not looking for a fight. I just want you to honestly address this. So speaking about, proof that the election was altered, et cetera, a very important part of your argument, and what I really like, is that you have a lot of different aspects. You're not just relying on the guarantee clause, for example. You're not just talking about treason. There's a whole part of your case, which I would like to scroll through here on our petition, but I don't want to lose my place. But you talk about the election being void ab initio because of fraud and because of fake news. So Mark Zuckerberg, who has not yet gotten back to us, I have sent emails to people that I know have sent emails to him. The latest revelation yesterday is that not only did Facebook receive tons of money from Russian oligarchs, and they also helped them tweak their fake news, But now it seems, or it's been shown, that they actually helped organize protests through Facebook, that the Russia actually organized protests of anti-immigrant protests using Facebook as a channel. So what would you like to say to Mark Zuckerberg right now in terms of what he could, should, would do to repair the damage that he has unwittingly, we're assuming, giving him the benefit of the doubt, has caused to our entire country and to the world?
Having not read those items, I would, but if those are true, I would recommend that he take the Facebook or the various social media and agree that we should have a special master appointed by the Supreme Court, and he should give as much publicity as possible to this case. So one, people are aware, and two, so that the justices of the court are aware that the people are outraged by what has occurred.
Great. So now another tricky one. We have a lot of esteemed constitutional lawyers in our country who have done a lot of good work, who are esteemed and who know the Constitution backwards and forward. And some of those we've been talking to or discussing this since even before you came on the case. We were fortunate to have a lawyer brave and, flexible and creative like you to, look at the Constitution and apply it. So I'm loading the question here, but people, for example, like Lawrence Tribe and Lawrence Lessig, who are, at Harvard and who, tried to flip the electors, which, quite frankly, the electors were illegitimate in many cases also because they were either illegally appointed because they were public officials, whatever, or they were illegitimately elected in their state, whatever. These same people, these same constitutional lawyers are now talking about impeachment, and perhaps Nancy Pelosi will become the next president of the United States. So why is it that these constitutional lawyers who are the experts and the professionals are not on board with you and are not supporting or even discussing the merits of this case? What's going on there, in your opinion?
Well, I have a pocket copy of the Constitution. I have various copies of the Constitution. They all say the same thing, and these people are saying that there are no provisions in the Constitution except for impeachment, as far as removal of a sitting president, or the 25th Amendment. Those are the only two provisions in the Constitution. The document itself is relatively short. I mean, there's not that much volume in the Constitution, and the framers meant for the Constitution to be adaptable to different problems that the country would face. One thing that the framers could not have overlooked, and that is the possibility of elections being stolen through ballot tampering, through vote tampering, and even through, we have foreign intervention in this instance. They thought that the Electoral College would guard against that. But they viewed the Electoral College as being a deliberative body that was independent of any kind of parties or any kind of ties on votes, and that they were tied down on what they could do on votes. So those are all things that the framers thought had been taken care of. As far as these other individuals who are saying that this, that Nancy Pelosi would be president, or that this is not a valid way to pursue something, I don't know what to say about that. They can have their opinion. If they want to disagree with me, then tell me why I'm wrong. I've had people blast this concept of this case and blast the other effort that was tried, that was a pro se effort. And I read criticisms of that case and tried to adapt this petition to what people criticized about that prior case. If people want to criticize this case and its constitutional bases, let them. I'll be glad to address what arguments they have. But just to say that we don't know what we're talking about on the Constitution, that's kind of an ad hominem attack. It's like, I shouldn't really know that much about the Constitution because I don't teach constitutional law. Well, there's no such thing as a constitutional lawyer. All lawyers have to know the Constitution. We take oaths for it. It's just that some lawyers' practice is more focused so that they have more interaction and more familiarity with the Constitution. My familiarity with it is I'm an appellate attorney. I'm certified to handle capital defense cases, in other words, death penalty cases. So the Constitution comes into play quite a bit there. Also, in 2010, I started getting into blogging wars with people who were in the Tea Party, and they would quote obscure sections of the Constitution for positions that they took. As a consequence of that, I started studying the Constitution a lot more thoroughly than most people in law school do, because we really aren't taught the Constitution that deeply. Con Law 1 has to do more with arrests and searches and seizures. It really doesn't have much to do with constitutional history. So let them say that what we're doing is somehow not well-founded. Let them disagree with me. Just ask them to say specifically why. I'll be glad to do it. I'll be glad to address those questions, those arguments. But if all they're going to do is just say that this is without merit, then fine. Their argument is without merit because they're not arguing the substance of what we're saying.
Okay. I know we have said this is going to be a brief update, but this is so rich, and I have to thank you. And for the record, did you and I do any preparation this morning whatsoever? Don't rub your eye on the video. I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry about that. I haven't taken a shower yet.
Did you know any questions I was going to ask other than we're going to talk about the Russia Duma member? Have I set you up or give you an outline of how to respond to any of this stuff? Or are you totally uncut and raw and live right now?
Yeah, uncut.
Okay.
And raw and live. And also as a commentary on technology, I would point out that over one shoulder you can see my cassette collection and a shelf on my wall here in my study.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to set that record straight because I'm going to make innumerous video clips, little tiny sound bites of all these different great points that you're making. And I have two more. So before I get to another controversial person that I'm going to call out, and he's a frequent commentator on MSNBC, just to kind of whet people's appetite for the final cliffhanger. Going back to the Constitution, we have the Citizen's Guide here to the petition for writ of mandamus that you so elegantly wrote, but could you just give us a few pointers to people where in the Constitution we can direct them to start looking for themselves so they can see, yeah, the Constitution does work and it can work if we use it. Can you just
highlight? First of all, before anything, I want to just say I'm reaching out and telling people that we're in the path of Harvey and of Irma. I hope people are okay and doing the best they can. Like I said, one of our petitioners lives in Florida.
Two of them. Two petitioners.
We have two petitioners down there. Yeah. I apologize. And both of them. I hope them they're doing okay. But if you look at the Constitution, Article 3 governs the courts, and our courts have a great deal of jurisdiction over such things as in Article 3, Section 2, the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity. In equity, the equity court, that's where the court can fashion a remedy where an injustice exists and no remedy otherwise exists within the Constitution. And that was set forth in Marbury versus Madison. And when people say, well, that's the court saying it, our system is derived from the English court system, the English common law system. And so a very important part of what we have as law is announced by our courts. And so that's one place in which we have a basis for what we're doing in this case. Article 4, Section 4 guarantees that the states shall be protected against invasion, and we argue that was a failure of the federal government in that there was a cyber invasion by Russia of our election system, and now Russian members of the Duma are bragging about it.
Okay, awesome, thank you. I'm going to post on your Twitter a copy of this petition for writ of mandamus so all your fans and enemies can look at it for themselves. So finally, We're going to call out someone else. Interestingly enough, back in November, actually, no, sorry, back in December, before I even knew you, Mark, I had a number of conversations by phone with Malcolm Nance, whose work about hacking the Russian election I think is stupendous. He has consistently made great comments and reports about the interference of Russia in the election. He's a former Navy intelligence professional. He's on MSNBC all the time. He's big friends with Joy Reid. So I thought, man, if anybody can, help us get the word out, it would be Malcolm. So I had great conversations with him in December, and his attitude was kind of like, you go girls, and I'm with you in spirit. But he said, I'm under contract with MSNBC, so I can't give you a shout out. So what I understood that to mean was he can only talk about what they want, they give him the topics, he's on their schedule, that's fine, okay? However, what disappointed me was that we found a video clip of him in January at a public gathering where some people asked him, hey, what do you think of this citizens initiative? And he laughed and said, oh, they contacted me and asked me to help them. And I said no, because I didn't think it had a snowball's chance in hell, ha, 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 because the framers, ha, 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 for them, cyber invasion. Basically, he kind of explained why he thought it wouldn't work. But, I'm just wondering, when he says he's under contract at MSNBC, why is it that all these networks, trust me, they've all heard from us. We are persistent, we're relentless, we're pains in the butt in terms of giving them all the information. Why is it that they'll go so far to talk about what happened and what the problem is? But then when it comes to actually pointing to a solution that we can, at least, like you said, discuss, tweak, work on, get behind, fight. Why is there this deafening silence among these same people who have told us the sky is falling?
Well, maybe it's because they're complicit somewhat in how Trump was able to gain office. I remember watching one show on MSNBC last spring several times where they would show 15 or 20 minutes uninterrupted of Trump rallies. That just seemed rather odd. Trump sold commercials. They were able to sell dog food. I mean, they were able to market their show because Trump, as a personality, drew people to watch. Even if people didn't like him, they're wanting to see what was going on. As far as they're looking for a solution, I don't know. When I've mentioned to people in other lawyers, or when we've posted, the more people read this online and it's posted, the more people are saying, why haven't I read this before? Why haven't I heard of this before? And I don't know how to explain that. And the only thing that we can do is ask anybody that's listening to this that agrees with what we're doing, that we're saying that that Russia interfered with our elections, and that the Supreme Court should appoint a special master to conduct an independent investigation. And if that person determines that the election results were altered by Russia's interference, that the election be declared void ab initio. Now, if people at the very least agree that we should have an independent investigation, then I would ask that they share what we've got on Facebook with at least 3 other people, and ask those 3 other people each to do the same thing if they agree. And if we can't get the media at large to cover what we're doing, then at least through social media, we might be able to do that. And I believe social media have been very effective in other countries to bring those in power to get their attention.
And I'll give everyone a parting action today. You can write to the Supreme Court, and here on the screen, I think your face is blocking part of it, but I'll just give an example. No, it's not you. It's my lack of ability with this technology. I'm figuring it out. But on the screen, hopefully everyone sees a postcard. On the left side is hashtag hear the case. USCC, which means, of course, U.S. court case 16-1464, and the address that you can send it to. And by the way, we're asking people to send an individual postcard to each of the 9 justices. Justice Gorsuch, just asking him, by the way, to recuse himself because he has a conflict of interest. To Justice Gorsuch, please recuse yourself. But the others, Justice Alito, Justice Breyer, Justice Ginsburg, Justice Sotomayor, Justice Kagan, and Justice Thomas. And I'm missing two, Kennedy. And there's one more that I probably forgot. Anyway, each of those justices, so you write to Justice Ginsburg, for example, Supreme Court of the United States, 1 First Street Northeast, Washington, D.C., 20543. If you just do one thing and send a postcard to each of the justices, I've been told by sources inside the whole system that they will get those things delivered inside their chamber, and they will have the opportunity to look at it and hear your opinion as citizens. Notice here on the screen, we are not telling them how to act. We're not trying to influence their decision itself. What we are saying is that as citizens, we have the right to know if, in fact, Lawrence Tribe and Lawrence Lessig are correct in saying that the guarantee clause is not really a guarantee, that, in fact, the Constitution can't help us. In which case, if the Supreme Court says that, then we all know it's time to maybe go home and come up with a new way, a new system of government, because this one doesn't work. And if, on the other hand, the Supreme Court decides to exercise its power that you've explained to us, and I'm going to show again here in the petition that you wrote, Mark, USC 1651A, the Supreme Court and all courts established by act of Congress may issue all writs necessary or appropriate in aid of their respective jurisdictions and agreeable to the usage and principles of law. So give us a little hope here, Mark. Although I said I'm not telling the court what to do, explain in that little phrase there how they do or do not have the power to act on our request.
That's called the All Writs Act, and that means that the Supreme Court does have the jurisdiction to consider all things necessary to enforce or aid in its jurisdiction. And its jurisdiction, according to Article 3, is all, courts in law and in equity. So the court has the jurisdiction to do that which is necessary. In England, there were two courts. There was a court of law where someone would sue for monetary damages, and there was a court of equity in which people would ask the king to order people to do specific things, like perform on a contract or something. Here we're asking that officials, public officials, be mandated to do their jobs and make sure that our elections were run properly in 2016. So it's inequity. So this is within the jurisdiction of the court.
And the final, before I say goodbye to you and thank you so much, is that these people that I've called out, Mark Zuckerberg, Lawrence Lessig, Lawrence Tribe, Professor Lessig, Malcolm Nance. We're inviting each and every one of you to respond if you feel like it. And you've all done great service to your country in the past. I'm not taking away from all your contribution in the past. I'm just asking you all to rise to your best occasion now. You all have influence, money, power, and intelligence. And if you want to help us solve this problem, you surely can. So we're inviting you to be part of the solution. And we are open for all discussion. Is that correct, Mark, that you'll talk to each and every one of them?
Sure.
Thank you so much. And you have an awesome day.
You're welcome. And you too.
Okay.